Okay, so Yu-Gi-Oh! In recent years, about the last decade, has taken to depicting entire storylines on its card art, something that Magic the Gathering has been doing for most of its existence. With the, I feel like World Legacy was probably like, if not the first, one of the first, but Branded is the one that in recent years has really gotten a hold of people. I'm referring to it as Branded overall. It might be a different name for the overall story, but I'm gonna go with that until I discover otherwise. So if you for some reason are listening to this and have not already watched what I'm talking about today, you can watch it on YouTube. I'll put literally all the episodes in the description, so you can just go and watch that real quick and then come back here if for some reason you didn't. Anyways, so I have some of the cards here. I will say I only have the cards that come in the Chronicles deck, as in the structure deck that was released as a product to coincide with this series. And likewise, most of the events of this series are depicted on the cards, and some of them even being new art because otherwise they weren't depicted. But yeah, so as I'm talking about the through the thing and bringing up relevant topics, I'll mention the cards one by one. Just open my notes. Okay, so obviously, our main character of this story is one Dogmatica Ecclesia, and this being the starting in literally a nation called Dogmatica, which seems to be like in a desert, like a desert empire type situation for some reason. But yeah, so we're introduced to this character who I'm not gonna talk over every single little event that goes on, but we start with some kind of ceremony for her, and the first person we get talking is Dogmatica Maximus, who, if not the leader, seems to be like the figurehead of whatever like religion is being depicted here. And like from the beginning, you can get the, if you didn't already get it from the name, you can get the very evil like vibes of what's going on here pretty early on, just from what the dude is saying and just kind of the vibe of things. And then you have the little like parade with the woman walking through the crowd, and you get Ecclesia just standing on a balcony watching this parade go down. Like, and then who she calls her sister. It's unclear if they're actually related by blood or if this is just like the main guardian that raised her. But she walks up and they start to have a conversation. This sister being the character depicted in the card as Dogmatica. I thought it was fleur de lis just off a reading, because her name is never pronounced in the show. But it turns out by looking up the pronunciation, it is fleur de lis. So I will stick to that pronunciation from now on. Dogmatica Ecclesia, the Virtuous, Dogmatica Fleur de Lis, the Knighted. And she is the Knight Commander of the military force of this religion. I have so much to say about this character. But yeah, so yeah, they have a conversation, and there is one little bit that I wrote down in my notes that I find interesting, and it's that Fleur de Lis says to Ecclesia that she is naive but kind and strong. And yeah, the character never really. I mean, this ultimately being an adventure of you have a character who's being displaced from the life that they knew, and they always had maybe had their doubts, but being shown just how bad the world really is, and like sticking to do what's right. Obviously, that's the kind of story you're getting here. So they have their conversation, and then a freaking black and red portal opens up, and a dragon comes through it. I wasn't sure which of the dragons was being depicted, but from looking, it seems to be Titana clad, the ash dragon that comes through this portal. For what reason this attack happens, who the heck knows? But we get Fleur de Lis. She puts over her knight helmet. She jumps onto the balcony. She basically not even summons, it seems to magnetically come to her, this giant circular shield, and then she flies off. I have, dude, this character is so freaking cool. And there's so much to it. I didn't actually see her original, I believe what is her original art of her in her full night gear until last night. And man, this woman looks like straight out of a FromSoft game. She looks like a rather difficult FromSoft boss from like everything we see her do, from her armor, the fact that she's this like floating knight who's like 7 feet tall, her sword, this gigantic shield that she could boomerang like Captain America and like move around. And then she flies up towards the dragon and proceeds to one shot the dragon by slashing its eye. And that is what is depicted in Dogmatica Punishment. 10 out of 10 in cool points with this character, and that's not even like this is the basically the first thing she does. We don't see Ecclesia fight once in this whole. Um, I don't think we see Ecclesia fight once in any of these episodes. Um, that said, she does wield a warhammer, so she also has this like. It seems to be like a magical hammer. Maybe she just is that strong enough to wield a hammer, or maybe there is some magical like reinforcement going on because she's also wearing this like big armor, and obviously like Ecclesia's character design is also great. Like I really love the armors that they have depicted uh, here. But so yeah, Dragon gets knocked down to the city. Ecclesia goes to basically the crash site by herself, and we get the iconic moment where she's kind of like looking at him and is like, "Am I gonna have to fight?" So she readies her hammer, but obviously, her being who she is, as soon as she sees vulnerability, she's like, "Nah, okay, you are in a no position to fight. We're let me help you instead." The character, obviously, being I didn't mention, but if you watched it, now it seems to be like a odd looking like monster kid who of course is fallen about as we know him, but he doesn't get that name until later. We'll get there. Um, so yeah, she's like as the other factions start showing up. First, the regular Dogmatica soldiers, and then the freaking Tri Brigade shows up, and that's why Fleur de Lis didn't chase down the dragon because he basically uses some kind of magic on her eyes to look down, sees Ecclesia moving towards it, and then she gets attacked by Shirai. And yeah, no, this is where we see some more of her abilities, and we basically get the idea of like, despite the idea of what they are, because of like the different magic and abilities they're using, both Fleur de Lis and Shirai, on their cards, they're depicted as like 2,500 with an effect that adds 500. So realistically, when she attacks, I believe she would be 3,000. And then versus Shirai, who is just straight up a 3,000. Shirai being a card that is not included in the deck, you'd have to get that separately. But he's a link monster who's kind of like the main boss monster of the Tri Brigade deck. But yeah, when you like see some of the stuff that they're doing, and like this is Yu-Gi-Oh's like representation of a 3,000 attack monster fighting a 3,000 attack monster. It's like, this is so freaking cool. But yeah, they have their fight. They do cool stuff. Uh, and then back on the ground, it's basically, yeah, a stalemate between the Tri Brigade, the Dogmatica soldiers, and then Ecclesia instead, like basically protecting the Dragon Boy in the middle. And obviously the soldiers are like, step aside, and she's like, nah. Like, she maybe could have been a little smarter about this and basically been like, let's just take him prisoner, we don't have to kill him. But like, evil empire, man, like they would probably try to kill him anyways. um, but a thing that I didn't really click the first time watching this was the dude, after he retracts his claws, he he does like a magic symbol thing, but I didn't notice that the portal, it looked exactly the same as the portal the dragon came out of in the first place. I didn't notice that when I initially watched it because I was watching it monthly, so I didn't remember all all the details. But yeah, that's, if that's not a clear example of like all this, a lot of the messed up crap comes from the same shit. And then the fighting starts, and the soldiers are clearly like some kind of zombie. Like, you never get the real answer in this animation of what exactly is going on with Dogmatica and like what kind of stuff, but there's certainly plenty of hits. Like, they did some, like, they're clearly on some kind of like evil magic that messed up the ecosystem of the planet type deal. Right, like, so yeah, after the dude does the thing, it seems to be a thing that the Dragon Kid like can absorb, if he absorbs certain energies or substances, that is what will trigger the transformation, different transformations that we have. Because in terms of the cards, like if you know the deck, he has like 10 plus transformations of different dragons he turns into, and even in this show there's like three, four, five. And yet in this case, it seems he turns into Brigand the Glory Dragon. But yeah, fighting starts, and also I want to mention this card too, which I think was a new card with the Chronicles deck, the Dragon that Devours the Dogma. And like, I guess it's the same dragon on the card art, but it's, because of the foiling, it's actually, you can't really make out many details of the dragon. The main reason it seems to be this scene is because Ecclesia is in her armor, and she obviously wouldn't be after this. But like, I guess that's the same dragon, but it is unclear. But yeah, I wanted to mention like the different dragon forms, and like it's an interesting example of the way card like ideas can come together, because some of the dragons, like for example, Mirjade, for example, seems to be an ice dragon. So the idea of it's involuntary at this point, but like a kid who can absorb different substances or energies to transform into different forms being like interpreted as a way for fusion cards to come about is a really cool example of like card design and storytelling coming together. So yeah, I'm not gonna go over every single detail. You have Fleur-de-Lis and Shirak fighting. You have now the fighting on the ground between the Tribe Brigade, the Dogmatica. I mentioned the zombie thing, and freaking Ecclesia gets knocked out during the process of this, while the kid in his dragon form is protecting her. All that goes down, and I think they mentioned that the whole point of the Tri Brigade attacking was basically to distract all of the like military forces while they free some prisoners, and that seemed to be what was Tri Brigade Mercurier, the little golden tech bird showing up seemed to be the trigger for them to be like, okay, mission accomplished, we're good, right? So they retreat. They're like, Shirai comes down after his fight. He's beat the hell up because, yeah. Uh, and says, take the kids with us, basically, right? We get the bit where Ecclesia wakes up at the camp and what's her name? I actually forget her name because I don't think her card is included. Yeah, they don't really include the Char Brigade cards in the thing, but like the older Cap girl, forgive me for forgetting her name. I watched this yesterday. That's crazy. Um, um, but she is basically trying to talk to Ecclesia and basically like calm her down. She's the one who tells her like, well, it seems like you can't go back home, so you might as well stick with this kid that you saved. I like the little line that she has where she's like, if you save someone, you need to see it through. And yeah, that essentially becomes the motivation. They tell the kids basically, y'all go find the Spriggans, who we later find out are basically this sand pirate crew that's mostly robots. Uh, I want to guess that these were robots that were built by Kit, as in the cat girl's little sister who we meet later. Uh, when they meet, but I am kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. So they started adventuring through the desert, and I really do like that this turns into a little like there's a bit of a adventure thing that I'm getting out of order. Okay, let me go back in my notes a little bit. One thing that I did write down that I want to mention is that okay, Ecclesia getting kicked out of the order, is the idea supposed to be that like Ecclesia is essentially a race traitor, because the Dogmatica people seem pretty humanoid, like the most humanoid, and then the Tri Brigade people for the most part, and almost every other character we meet are very much not humanoid. They're like not humans, they're like humanoid animal people for the most part. And then obviously Albaz is a dragon kid. Where the heck did he come from? And it does seem to be kind of going for a thing of like, you have a world with wildly different like humanoid species, and so the empire is on their racism in addition to the religion. I'm like, there's a thing that keeps being said that outsiders basically do not have the mark of stigmata or something like that, which makes it seem like there's some like magical or religious element of specific thing that you're born with. It seems a little more complicated than just humans versus man beast people, but everybody else is like beast people. So what are we doing here? And I use the term race trader specifically because like, if you actually know your shit, most of the time a race trader is a good thing, because it's literally someone from the privileged oppressor basically utilizing their like as much of their power and ability as they're left with after leaving the side of the oppressors, and using it basically to defend and fight with the oppressed. Like, race trader in this case is the term I'm using, but like class trader is the same thing. A rich person who hates like perhaps even the way that like wealth builds around them, maybe even, and decides instead, or like just like a rich person who basically decides, I'm gonna go out of my way to like help out like the homeless or help out this other oppressed group, and basically defend them from my peers or former peers, who are like amassing their wealth by how they treat these people. Same idea, race trader, class trader, when coming from the oppressor is a good thing, right? But yeah, after Ecclesia and the Dragon Kid leave the Tri Brigade, they basically go on a little desert adventure. She's trying to talk to him, and that's when he's like, I don't know my name, I don't know where I came from, I don't know what I am, none of that. And then they have the campfire under the like bones of something, and that's where you get the nice little bit where I think he's like, I don't have a name, so give me one. And it doesn't seem to be the name Albaz is a flower specifically, but right before she gives him the name, she has a flashback to a flower. So I had to look up what that means, and I don't know exactly how the dots connect there, but like the general idea being that she gave him a very like pretty name to contrast with like his appearance, and like even his like abilities would make him to be this scary person that's like, of course he'd be outcast, but now that's your closest ally. So she's, we're obviously this story is playing on the ideas of like, I think I literally saw someone say the angel girl and the devil boy, but the angel girl obviously comes from a very oppressive, monstrous society, and again, this doesn't depict his past, but you can guess that like the dragon boy obviously comes from, if not full isolation, some kind of like maybe small village of that was probably, who knows what the Dogmatica did to them, but like, this is, at this point, this is just conjecture, this is just me guessing, because I don't even know what happens past this point in terms of the card story. I still need to look into that. And I literally, there's two videos by the dual logs that go into all the lore, of this storyline, and also we'll put the cards on screen as they're relevant too. So if you want to know more, it seems like it's probably going to be some years if we ever do come back to this story in terms of Konami animation. Uh, but if you just want to get into it now, then you could just go check out those videos because again, these cards are several years old at this point. But to get back to the story, so yeah, her giving him a name was a nice little moment. I really like the music that the company that did. And then yeah, they get captured by the Spriggans basically, and then everybody realizing who it is, basically. Sorry about that. I don't know what the heck is happening outside. Um, oh, I hope that's not music or something. But so they meet Kit, which is the little sister of the cat girl we met earlier with the mink hair, and she's a mechanic. And again, it seems to be a thing where she basically just built her own like robot pirate crew. If maybe these robots already existed prior, and she, as a mechanic, she's the main person who can help them. I don't know. Um, but yeah, that's her role. Obviously, the kid becomes like, okay, now this can be the girl best friend because like being around the same age as them, they can form a little thing. But we basically get the idea of there's a race that's gonna happen, and the way they say it, it seems to be a race among the crew. But then when we actually get to the race, um, it seems like the other races are trying to kill them. Like that scene very much reminds me of like pod racing in Star Wars Episode One, where like the other races are literally trying to kill these, in this case, children, as opposed to the one child. But like, so it's very unclear who the other races are, especially since the whole crew is celebrating when we get the win. Uh, the thing that they're racing in, funnily enough, also for some reason being an Albaz fusion called Sprind the Iron Dash Dragon, even though he's just piloting it. That's very funny because that's even a little bit of a separate thing where this fusion is not an actual literal fusion of the beings themselves. It's just this person piloting this machine. Like that's valid too, I guess. Like, but yeah, so they win the race, and funnily enough, this is the moment where you can see Ecclesia holding like the skull of like some dinosaur or dragon something with a smile on her face, and this is the moment that that skull basically becomes what she uses for her new hammer that is depicted in Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous. But then you get so yeah, you get the attack from that giant monster. I forget its name, but it's like a giant like reptilian leviathan kind of monster. But then it also has the same symbol as the portal and the like magic thing that the soldier had used. So that's again your third example, I think, of like, okay, what is going on with that? Did they like? Okay, clearly they like mess with nature in some pretty bad ways. Because also, why is a giant saying Leviathan popping up in the first place? Uh, but yeah, uh, and this one's funny too because this one doesn't even seem to be a case of anything being absorbed into Albaz. He literally sees the thing, and that is enough to transform him into a dragon. This one being all beyond the branded dragon, which is the one which is entirely like has a body of fire, I think. Um, and then they start fighting. You get a funny little bit where Kate gets knocked to the side by the fighting while she's trying to get Ecclesia to go away, and it's very cartoony for the bit where she has like the swirly eyes of her being knocked out. Um, but yeah, they kind of just retreat to like a little valley that's nearby while they're trying to get Kid to wake up, and then the two monsters get hit by this gigantic bolt of lightning, and that's enough to take them out. And then we look up and see three figures that are standing on the cliffside. I didn't even when I first saw this, I didn't know so much about like these Yu-Gi-Oh cards in particular. I was still kind of getting into the game. I did not know that was Fleur de Lis, and that it was also two of the other like strongest soldiers from the Dogmatica people, and that was this was there was a whole off-screen basically thing that happened of them defecting, and this is yeah, it is kind of funny because they also don't have any lines here, so it's not like they can offer an explanation of anything that's happened since then, at least not to the viewer. Clearly, they do talk after this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Um, so yeah, giant lightning bolt, which again is another completely insane feat by Fleur de Lis. Um, One-shotting a giant Leviathan monster that's clearly like the size of a skyscraper. Whatever, just no big deal. She looks completely different, and I do know what the cards are. So these three are Sword Soul. It's the archetype that they belong to, and she is the Iris Sword Soul. Also a very strong card, but yeah, it does not come with a thing. You gotta buy that separately. Um, but yeah, she is about to attack the freaking. It's about to attack Albaz, who's kind of still rampant, like not like rampaging, but he's still like angry dragon that's hostile. And Ecclesia realizes this and is basically like goes towards him. It's basically I forget if she says anything or what she says, and it seems like Fleur de Lis heard one of them say Ecclesia, and that was part of why she stopped. But she goes towards the dragon, and she does the trope of uh, my boyfriend has turned into a monster, but hopefully he'll recognize me still and will calm down. And we get the moment, like, this moment's so good. Um, that is depicted on Brandon Bond. And this is the point where I didn't expect, basically, like, it's not like you can't expect it, but like, I didn't expect for a Yu Gi Oh storyline for the card to, you know what, that's not even true, because also the Yu-Gi-Oh shows, like I watched Duel Monsters GX 5D, so like I don't think it's fair to say that I didn't expect Yu-Gi-Oh to like get me to shed a tear or anything like that. When I say that a show or a story got me, that's what I mean, is that it got me to like healthy cry, right? But yeah, about the moment where she's walking up to him with her arms out and she's like basically offering the dragon a hug is about the point of this episode where it starts to get me. And then obviously he calms down and the fire disappears and he kind of transforms further. So yeah, the fire version is Albion the branded dragon, and then the calm down version is Albion the shrouded dragon. And it is kind of funny that for the rest of this episode, he's this dragon form, because like right after the moment where he calms down, we kind of start getting to a credits sequence where they're playing the music and like they're not saying anything anymore. Um, Ecclesia, again, I didn't even realize that like yeah, she would have recognized this as her sister as soon as she got close. So she got close enough and tried walked up to talk to her. Um, I just thought originally when I was watching it that like she went for that hug to just basically thank you for not killing my boyfriend. Like, and that like yeah, they would just go on their way with the adventure, but no, it very much was a little reunion that apparently uh, Fleur de Lis told them to go to a place, and that's why they end up deciding to leave the Spriggans. But so yeah, we get a nice little montage of just like a little the crew basically having their celebration meal, and like even it's even a thing where like the food looks obviously like this is way better food than what we're used to. Like in general, the food looks good. Like well, in animations, always the food doesn't always look good, but in this case, it really does. But yeah, they have their celebration meal. Albaz is still in his dragon form. He's still Albion throughout this entire episode. Um, and so like now he's just chilling as a dragon, and like is even during the meal is eating as a dragon. And then yeah, we get the last little moment, which is what is depicted on Branded in High Spirits, where see, I mean, if I tear up a little just staring about it, where yeah, Ecclesia and Albion, right? She has her new hammer. Albion has control of himself, right? So they decide to continue their adventure to in the show. If you didn't know, you wouldn't have an idea. You would just be like, okay, they're leaving to go do something. And then you can see in the background like the Spriggans crew like just straight up setting off fireworks and all that, and they have these big hands, like robotic hands that are coming out the ship as they're doing like the double hand wave goodbye thing. And like yeah, that moment's great. It's so good. I love it. I love it. That's such a little I'm a sucker for like found family stuff. And I think this is like, even though it's pretty simple and kind of like utilizes tropes, Konami Animation very much is using a lot of tropes in these animated things and how they're depicting things. But it's done well. They're doing a really good job at with these. And yeah, no, this little, even though it's pretty simple, found family thing they do with like, okay, y'all, the pirate crew is our friends now, but we gotta move on, right? Like, it's great. It's great. I really like this. I really like this. Episode 6 of this series really does bring it together and elevate the whole thing like a point or two. Now, again, like, it's clearly a to be continued, but how? Like, it's not made clear at all where they're going, why they're going, uh, and like even in the context of a meta sense, we don't know when they're, like I think clearly they're going to come back to this and like approach the second half of the story. But how? Like there again, there's more story here, and my best guess is that storyline is probably gonna be like named Despia, or maybe there's a different name they'll utilize for it. This one, I don't even want to say it was a very dogmatic and focused one because it very much was following primarily Ecclesia and Albaz and their storyline. And when people talk about the whole storyline, if they don't say branded, they say the Fallen of Albaz storyline. Like these are clearly the main characters, and that clearly continues on with the other, what seems to be half of the story. But yeah, there's been no confirmation. They kind of only tell us which storyline they're adapting, even like as the current one is wrapping up. So we might come back to that in the next few years, but like for now, it's a good little enjoyable thing that is certainly more than enough to where you can like at the end of the day, I think the whole story from beginning to end is depicted on cards. So like maybe they're just like we're not going to give you the whole thing obviously because you can go somewhere elsewhere and get the whole story. Like in the same way that a lot of anime adaptations essentially just end up being one season, and it's clear at the end that like they do a little bit of like maybe the last 5-10 minutes is like just a reestablishment of the status quo, and it's basically very clear that like okay, if you want an actual continuation of the story, go read the manga. Like same deal here, but it's good stuff, right? And like I said, I'm gonna put as much in my description as I can for you to go and see these other things. Picking up the Chronicles deck, I want to say, okay, in terms of cards and building up your collection, it is a very, very good product. But it is not simple. uh, this is very much a set of cards that fit the stereotype that Yu-Gi-Oh has of every single card has a paragraph of text that only after reading can you simplify in your head, okay, I use this card for this purpose. And I will fully admit that I have not read most of these cards and obviously have not played with them either. So that is the next thing for me to do is now that I've talked about this, I do need to put some time into actually learning this deck and these cards and how they play out in gameplay. So, and I'll try to get to getting a good gameplay video that's simple enough to understand what's going on to showcase like all these cards and like you know because ultimately these things are to encourage you to play the game at the end of the day. Like you have something nice to watch, but that thing that's nice to watch wants you to become a player and become more invested in do things that way and not just leave the thing as that was a nice thing to watch. Okay. Right? And yeah, no, same here. I do actually legitimately like how Yu-Gi-Oh like plays and manifests as a card game. I don't just like I'm not just someone who watched the anime. It was just like, all right, but I don't care about the cards. I'm gonna leave it at that. Or like, the card game isn't like the anime, so I don't want to play it. No, I'm not that kind of person. I do like the complexity and like crazy, fast nonsense that is modern Yu-Gi-Oh. It has problems, but like it has a lot of the same difficulties that like if Magic had operated the same way, if MTG had operated the same way, it doesn't matter how simple the individual effects of cards that come about would have been. You still ultimately in a game with 10,000 plus cards, You have 10,000 plus game pieces. Ultimately, the complexity is going to reach like a high point. And people who've been playing the game for a decade or 2 decades are obviously going to destroy you. Like, that's just in the same way people who've been playing Street Fighter since 2 for like 30 years. Yeah, of course you don't stand a chance unless you just really put in that much more effort to learn the game faster than they did. But I'm kind of getting off topic here, right? I hope you enjoyed the thing, and it's short enough. It's like 30 minutes, like around total, so it's also pretty rewatchable as like a little thing. There's the other animated Yu-Gi-Oh things uh, that are part of the overall series of the Chronicles that you may or may not be interested in. I'll be honest, I still have to catch up. I haven't watched all the Spirit Charmers episodes. I haven't watched any of the most recent ones with the, was it Magistus? Yeah. But, yeah. Y'all have a good one.